Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the 50th episode of Committed Critics, a pop culture podcast where we're not only committed to our opinions, but also each other. Aww. I'm Kevin Lau.
I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Zachary Wright.
Whoa, 50 episodes, guys. I think this calls for a special events, a special situation, a revamping.
Or another revamp. Another revamp, as you will.
Well, don't call it a reboot.
Don't call it a
reboot. So, as you can probably tell by the time code of this episode, or maybe not, depending on how we edit this, we're doing a little bit. We're changing up the format just a little bit, ever so slightly. So now the episodes are basically going to be split into halves. The first half is going to be our general, normal episode where we just talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Yep.
And then the second half of the episode, it gets more laid back, more chill, more off the cuff discussion of not only the topic that we're talking about, but also some other things related to the topic or other things that we've read or watched or played recently.
Yeah.
The first half is going to be available on every platform, and the second half will be exclusive to Patreon.
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, you guys are still getting your normal dose, same show as Committed Critics for the 30 minutes as you have been the last full year. Actually, well, it's been a year of Committed Critics, guys. Look at that. And then the Patreon subscribers, they're getting there instead of a fuck around episode of the podcast, they'll be getting the other half of this episode, which will be a replacement for the F around stuff. So there is that. So thank you guys for being patient with us, and we appreciate it.
Yeah. Ryan, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, y'all pretty much covered it. Yeah.
Also, check out our TikTok, guys. We have 500 views on our TikToks. We're getting up there.
Lord.
Gross.
Nah, man, it's great. I love TikTok.
Oh, boy.
By the end of this episode, we'll get Kevin on TikTok. Mark my words.
No!
For Simu, Kevin. You got to do it for Simu.
Speaking of Simu, today we're talking about Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings.
You're welcome for that setup, Kevin. You are welcome.
Yeah, I hope you're glad that I actually took it.
No, right? I appreciate it.
It'd be like, Simu, who's that?
I tossed you that ball in the air and you smacked it out of the park. Atta boy.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings, the latest MCU film. The start of Phase 4, starring Simu Liu, you may know him from Kim's Convenience, and also some short films from Wong Fu Productions on YouTube. Or maybe some stock photos from you've seen them many years ago.
or his social media presence, because it's impeccable. Mwah.
He has a good Twitter. Whoever is in charge of his telling him what to do about Twitter, like his PR or someone, whoever he hires, doing a good job.
I'm fully convinced it's just him running his own Twitter and his TikTok. I'm convinced it has to be just him.
Well, no, so I think it's him for sure. Like it's all him, but
right.
Like he might have to. Most of it has to like curate it through like a public relations person or an agent.
True.
I mean, obviously, some of it when he calls out the people who hired him for the stock photos, I think that's just purely him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, yeah, I can get away with this.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, so Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings. We're gonna start with our quick spoiler-free thoughts. And Ryan, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, I can start it off. So I think I'll just say I love this movie. I think we all love this movie.
This movie sucks.
This is oh god, what?
Just kidding. Go on.
No, I mean, like, I love them. Like, I had a hard time choosing, like, because I try to rank my Marvel movies, and for the longest I was like, because I put Black Panther at the top, and I was like, man, I really want to put this above Black Panther, but I'm not, because I respect Chadwick Boseman, and he put a lot into that film. So this is my number 2 MCU movie of all time. Love the characters, the action, the humor, the plot. I didn't feel like it was bogged down by the MCU as a whole, like, you know, all the references and trying to make it connect and be like, you know, we've set up in the next Infinity Saga. Like, no, it felt like it was its own original thing. And I really, really want to watch this again. So, yeah.
I think you took the words right out of my mouth, Ryan, because I think this is the first time we all love a Marvel movie without any, like, qualms or disagreements. I think this is the first time we all are unanimous on this, and this is amazing.
Yeah, even seeing like your guys' notes later on down the line, our opinions seem to line up pretty well, which I think says a lot more about the movie than us.
Right, yeah. They line up very well, and like the things that we're not sour on, but like a lot less like keen on are like pretty similar. As for my thoughts, like Shang-Chi, one of the best origin movies for any MCU superhero or any superhero really in general. The film focuses on his characters super well, and it creates a very original feel for itself, which I'll get into later. And the best part, the thing it does best is, like Ryan said, it doesn't get bogged down by the MCU's backstory, and it just kind of sprinkles that MCU interconnectivity in very organically. It's not beating you over the head with it. You're not getting bonked over the head repeatedly. Easter eggs are just enough to be like, yeah, we're back in the MCU, and we got a great new character to go in with. Like, and it's really great.
Right. I mean, like, in terms of, like, if you think about it in context of, like, comic books, like, Shang-Chi is, like, a good jumping on point for people who have not experienced the MCU at all.
For sure, 100%, yeah.
Because, you no need for prior knowledge, like, because there are references to past characters, but, like, you don't even know who they are, because Shang-Chi himself does not know who they are.
Was there even a reference to Thanos in this movie? Like, the snap?
There was a reference to the snap.
Yeah, there was, like, that was it. Okay. It was like a 5-second throwaway line.
I couldn't remember. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was the Eternals trailer I played before that referenced it, or if it was the movie.
No, there was a line saying, like, when they were talking to their friends at the restaurant at the beginning of the movie, they were just like, "Oh, we live in a world where anyone can disappear for like, hey, half the population could disappear for 5 years or something like that."
Okay, cool, cool. Kevin, what are your thoughts on it?
My spoiler-free thoughts on Shang-Chi is that this is the best use of the Marvel formula, topping even Spider-Man Homecoming from my perspective.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, I love Spider-Man Homecoming.
Same way, Kevin. Same way.
This film has actual genuine emotion to it, stellar action sequences, and top-notch pacing. The worst of the technical craft here in this movie is still better than the best of the technical craft of any MCU film that came before it. Like, Avengers Endgame can spend millions of dollars on their VFX all they want. It's still sometimes a flat image still looks like a flat image when you don't have the right skill behind it, behind the camera or the direction. Like Destin Daniel Cretton, who directs this movie, and Bill Pope, who shoots the movie, they both know how to shoot. They know how to make a movie very well, and it shows in this film when it's like it just leaps and bounds better just on a visual level than most of the MCU before it.
100%.
As in context of the MCU, I give this a 5 out of 5. As a general movie score, this is a 4 out of 5, which we'll dive into later.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you rate it?
I gave it a 6 out of 5.
Attaboy. I gave it a 5 out of 5. So we are we are doing great, my dudes.
For sure. So now, initiating a spoiler warning. If you've not seen Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, we're gonna spoil it here and that as we talked about it. But go ahead and see it. Highly recommend. I am usually anti-Disney, but this is the one time we're like, hey, give Disney your money on this one.
I'm the same way, Kevin. I'm the same way on that one.
Screw Disney. Tell Disney with your money, like, hey, I want more movies like this. Because hopefully they'll listen, because money talks in this world.
Kevin just falls to his knees, like, I don't want to. I know what I have to do, but I don't have the strength to do it.
Also, before we dive into spoilers, I want to say that I watched this in 3D, and the 3D conversion is some of the best 3D conversion I've seen in any movie. Because I like watching movies in 3D.
Yeah.
Especially the MCU movies. Like, even though like a lot of the cinematography is pretty flat, it's still like, oh, it's so cool. But like, there's so much depth to the frame, and there's so many, like, all the action sequences as well. And it's long takes, and like you can easily have like a sense of space. Based on how it's directed. That adding 3D, which is so well implemented, it just makes it work even better.
Interesting, because I hate 3D, so I'm glad you said that it was good.
Yeah, no. So the 3D was so good, I had to look it up. Like, was this shot in 3D? But no, it was shot in regular 2D, but then converted to 3D like all the other, most other 3D movies, and it just looks so natural.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
I've only seen like 2 or 3 movies that are like actually filmed in 3D, and one of them being I, Frankenstein, which is like you can tell like when something was shot in 3D
Right.
and when it was done in 3D in post production. This one I couldn't tell the difference, so it's really great.
Anyway, spoiler warning: get out if you haven't seen Shang-Chi yet.
Go watch it. Give Disney your money. So what is one thing we liked about Shang-Chi? Zach, you want to kick us off?
Just everything. I mean, really, if I had to pick like one thing in particular, it's the feeling of the film. It just feels super original and like nothing like any other MCU film has done before, we've seen before in the MCU, which is really great, especially for the cast and especially for like what this film stands for. Like, it's so good. The cast is great. Simu Liu knocks it out of the park. I did it. Yes.
Yeah.
And Wenwu is a great antagonist. I don't even like calling Wenwu a villain per se, because he's more just an antagonist, and it creates a super complex conflict for our set of heroes, and it's just so good.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Ryan?
No, I'm the same way. Like this, as I've told a lot of people, it felt like a live action anime and not like a Netflix one. Because, like, I mean, like the combat felt like it was like it felt like realistic, but enough that like it felt like it was action packed. Like I like the combat in this more than I've liked in any other MCU movie. Because I mean, like they're actually like it felt like an actual fight. It felt like there were actual stakes. And didn't feel like the main character was like OP,
right?
Because I'm like in other movies, like either even when they're fighting a faceless army, like it feels like the characters like are unstoppable,
right? Yeah,
like I mean, like the only time they've even fighting Thanos, it still felt like they still felt like they were much stronger. This felt like
it's like that superhero durability essentially.
Yeah, like this one felt like each person like kind of was on the same level. I mean, obviously, like some people were like better, but like you had a chance to beat the person above you,
right.
And I like this. It had, I mean, like as Zach said, Wenwu was one of the best antagonists. Well, not even antagonists, just like characters. Like
he's a character.
He's like one of the best characters ever, and also best end credit scene in the entire MCU.
The end credit scene or the mid credit scene?
Both end credit scenes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
both knocked it out of the park. Those made me laugh, and made me cry, and made me cheer.
Yeah,
I smiled
agree.
the entire time.
Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I love Simu Liu. I watched Kim's Convenience, which is the show that he's most known for,
right? And
he's my favorite actor on there because he just has like a natural charisma to him, and I kind of see him as like there's a few actors, Keanu Reeves and Edward Norton being among them, where they may not be like the best actors ever, but there's something about how their screen presence is like, you know, even though they may not be able to give the best performance ever, they still make the movie better, but just by being there.
I agree.
So Simu Liu, like he hasn't given an Oscar worthy performance yet. But his charisma really glues the film together. And then plus there was also like all the side cast as well. Like, and like the writing gave a lot of attention to the side cast. Even like Katie and had her own arc in the story as well, which we don't really like in an MCU film. The side characters don't really like do anything. They're kind of just there and then they help at the end. They don't really go through change. This one is like Katie goes through like. And it like there's such focus on Katie that like make sure like her change is genuine and growing alongside Shang-Chi himself.
Right.
And I want to rest in peace to Brad Allen, who was the choreography supervisor of this film. He is Jackie Chan's protege.
Oh, nice.
That's who it was. Okay.
He passed away beginning of August.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, so he saw a cut of the movie though, so there's that. But yeah, so it's just like and then I'll dive into this more on the second half of the episode, the Patreon exclusive half, that like how the choreography works, kind of like dissecting it a little bit, like how sort of like Ryan, how you felt like, well, I was like, oh, like these people don't seem OP, like there's a reason why, and it's what part of Jackie Chan's choreography philosophy as well. So I'll explain more on that in the Patreon exclusive episode. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about one thing we didn't like and our final thoughts on Shang-Chi. Be back in a bit. Starting a podcast? Try a Podbean Unlimited hosting plan. It's what we use here at Committed Critics, giving us the opportunity to have our show on Pandora, iHeartRadio, and even Spotify. You can get your first month of unlimited hosting for free on us by going to podbean.com/committedcrits, just like our Twitter, or by clicking the link in the description. Podbean, the easiest, most affordable option to get started in podcasting.
Don't you wish there was a pop culture review site that appealed to cinephiles, both professional and casual? Well, look no further than crpwrites.com. New content such as movie and TV reviews, film essays, and more are released every week by writers who crave for movies like every moviegoer craves for popcorn. CRP Writes is dedicated to making sure no one is wasting time or money where they shouldn't be. After all, you have to be able to buy your popcorn and eat it too. crpwrites.com. Casual reviews with purpose since 2018.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Committed Critics as we continue our talk on Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings. And one thing we did not like. Ryan, want to kick us off?
Yeah, I can. So if I had to pick something, I know we just literally talked about Katie getting an arc, but the thing is, like, it took a while to get to that arc for me. It's like, in the beginning of the movie, I did not like Katie. I was like, this is who we're getting, and I was like, I don't know, maybe it was just the way her character was written, or maybe it was, like, the stuff, like, I don't know. It was just, like, at the beginning of the movie, I was kind of like, I'm not so sure about this.
Okay.
And even then, when they were like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be his romantic interest," and I was like, "I'm really not sure about this." And by the end of the movie, I was like, "She's one of the best characters in this movie." Like, I enjoyed her, and like, she definitely had that arc from being someone without wanting to like kind of shun all responsibility and just kind of be like the jokey character, to actually being a hero in her own right.
Yeah, I agree.
And I was like,
yeah, I agree. And I think when she hits the dragon in the neck with the arrow, I definitely, like, I wish that quote would have came back more time about aiming. I wish it would have came back one more time, but it didn't. It left for the audience to interpret it, so it really worked out really well still. I do agree to some extent. Like, Kay in the beginning, she wasn't, like, her lines weren't hitting as right as I wanted them to. Like, Awkwafina is great and her comedy is amazing, but something wasn't hitting right. It took a little bit, like, after a couple jokes or so. Eventually, it got there, and I was like, okay, cool. I really like Awkwafina, how she's portraying this, and she did a really great job. If I had to pick one thing I disliked, if I really had to, because there really isn't anything I did not like too much, the CGI battle at the end was a little much. Like, it really it turns into a kaiju fight, and I'm like, well, just did not see this coming from this movie at all. But even then, like, we go for, like, the sequence of each fight the fight sequences get greater and greater in scale. You start with a little brawl on a unibus to, like, the Skyliner on the side of the skyscraper. And then it goes to Shang-Chi riding a freaking dragon trying to take down this dark demon. Like, what? That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, definitely.
I will agree with you, Zach. Like, it did seem like it definitely took a left turn a little bit when it got to that, because I was like, oh, I guess we have a giant demon at the end of this movie. Was not expecting that when I walked into this film, but I'll go with it.
Right,
yeah. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, so, I mean, like, the one thing I didn't like is kind of, like, common with what everyone else has been kind of saying lately in the reviews, is that the death of Wenwu and the dragon fight should have been swapped, or even it's like they fight or like Shang-Chi and Wenwu fight, and then the dragon's released, and then they have to work together to stop the dragon, and then the demon, and then like I think maybe it ends with like Wenwu like sacrificing himself to save his kids as like a pseudo act of redemption,
right?
It's kind of this thing of like, I don't know if there's an actual coin term for it, but I'm just calling it plot villains versus personal villains.
Yeah.
Wenwu is the personal villain for Shang-Chi, whereas the demon is the plot villain of the movie.
Yeah.
A plot villain is basically like something that has no personal connection with the main character. So like say like a giant asteroid heading towards Earth. That's the plot villain. Right. The personal villain would be like some dude or like some dude just like getting in the way of the main character trying to stop the meteor. So because when Wenwu dies, Shang-Chi's story is over. That's it. It's the end. So like, and then we have this whole action sequence of him fighting the demon. I mean, but like, it's the way it's done is still very entertaining. So like, it's I can nitpick all I want about this. It doesn't change the fact that this is still a very entertaining movie.
Right.
And it does the job of making a superhero movie for kids that like to be like, whoa, this is amazing.
Yeah, Kevin, the only reason I say like don't put the dad's death after the dragon, because that would have just felt, to me, that would have felt like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 with Yondu's death.
I mean, I think to Kevin's point, he's saying like don't have the dragon at all, really, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, like, because the dragon doesn't really have a setup.
Right, yeah. It's just, in
so
my head...
Well, it has a setup halfway through. Like,
right.
They introduced the concept of the dragon halfway through the movie. So, like, it kind of, like I said, it's come down left field. Like, oh, there's a dragon. That's why the dad is, that's why Wenwu is acting, kind of off.
Right.
Well, it wasn't even the dragon. It was the dragon acting through the rings and the rings manipulating him. That's what it was. So there's some connection there.
Right.
But like this movie doesn't explain the 10 rings at all, which is really cool. And I thought that was like oh cool, we aren't really gonna get an explanation. That's for like the sequel, as evident by either the post credit scene, etc. But I think for me, like even after Wenwu dies and the dragon just kind of goes off and Shang-Chi's like, well, I gotta stop it now. It's kind of more like the sins of the father. He's like, okay, I gotta clean up my dad's mess one more time. Like it still works, which is really cool.
Yeah, like it's not a problem. I'm just like, it could have been like interwoven a little bit better.
Yeah, it's not a problem. It's just it was great. Could be better. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
It was still really good.
All right, yeah, and then like just to kind of close out this portion of the episode, what are our final thoughts on Shang-Chi?
Ryan, go ahead.
Well, for me, this is where Marvel Phase 4 starts off. Movie, I know some people are like, oh, Black Widow's the start of Phase 4. Like, no, Black Widow belongs in Phase 3. It's before even Infinity War, and frankly, it's wrapping up a story that should have been introduced before Infinity War.
To add to your point, Ryan, like, yeah, Black Widow just really seems like a Phase 3 type of movie.
Yeah, like this,
even more so than like Far From Home.
Oh yeah, I call Far From Home kind of how I see the Marvel TV shows. I know those are shows are technically supposed to be Phase 4, but I'm like, I see those as the epilogue to Phase 3. It's kind of wrapping up some of these stories and introducing what Phase 4 will be about, what it's introducing. Far From Home, the shows, those are all wrapping up Phase 3. Shang-Chi to me is the start of Phase 4. It feels fresh. It feels new. It doesn't feel like it's being controlled by all these other, like, all this stuff before it. It's a new start to the Marvel universe, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And like, I mean, it feels like Iron Man 1 all over again.
I agree with you. Yeah.
This is a whole new character, whole new dynamic. He's gonna be what starts this new generation.
It's those 10 rings, man. Every beginning of the MCU starts with the 10 rings.
Yeah. Wow. I wonder if they planned that. I would not be surprised if that was the case. But I don't think the 10 rings are going to...
No, not at all.
I don't think the 10 rings are going to be evil in the future, though. I think they'll be anti-heroes, maybe.
Morally gray, yeah.
Stay, like, gray area, but they won't be villains, because I don't think his sister's going to, like, actively be like, I'm killing you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to the Eternals now after watching this movie, and I was not looking forward to that at all.
The Eternals.
To bounce off.
The Eternals, another film made by a filmmaker who actually knows how to make movies.
Exactly, yeah. That's so. To bounce off Ryan real quick, I am super excited for the Eternals now. Like, I was way more excited for Shang-Chi than I was the Eternals. I'm like, all right, whatever. After seeing this movie, I'm like, let's go. I am so stoked. And like the end credit scene got me even more stoked because like I want to like, I guess for me, it's the whole like Marvel interconnectivity where it's like, ooh, is the rings this beacon that activates the Eternals, whatever? That's where they gotta go fight. I know it's probably not, but like it's getting that like that speculation going, getting me excited for those Easter eggs. And yeah, I highly recommend everyone to go see Shang-Chi in theaters. It's worth it. I want to go back and see it in Dolby Cinema because we have a Dolby theater at AMC near us, so I want to see it in that. Fantastic, definitely top echelon of MCU films for sure. Top 3 at least, like somewhere near Endgame, 100%, like in my ranking. So, Kevin?
But yeah, so my final thought is that I can't wait for white people to say, I love Shang-Chi exclusively to their Asian friends.
Oh, dear God. God.
Also, it's very interesting how Shang-Chi's backstory feels way more traumatic than Black Widow's backstory, purely due to the execution of the movie.
Even though Black Widow's like backstory is like should be more traumatic.
Yeah, like no, because Black Widow's backstory is very traumatic, but like the movie kind of like after that opening credit scene, like it just becomes a standard MCU movie after that. Whereas Shang-Chi, like that feeling of dread is spread throughout the whole movie, and it has a lot of emotional weight to it. Like when Wenwu kills a guy in front of Shang-Chi, and he's like, "Do you want to? Like, are you going to help me get revenge?" And Shang-Chi like says yes. I was like, "Oh, damn,
dude!" That line where he's like,
it.
"A blood debt can only play with blood" or something like that. I'm like,
yeah,
damn.
a blood debt must be paid in blood.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, let's go.
But yeah, it's just like, Black Widow technically has the most traumatic backstory of the MCU, but Shang-Chi feels like the most traumatic purely just how well executed the movie is.
For sure.
I literally said he got Katara and Sokka. He watched his mom die, and it was like, I'm gonna get revenge.
But I think it also shows that like I don't think like the problems with Black Widow, I think they're all problems from higher up and not from Kate Shortland herself. Because Kate Shortland proved as a director, not only in her past movies, but also the first 20 minutes of Black Widow, that like she's very capable of making a very engaging film. Mm. And then like someone higher up was like, okay, now the rest needs to be like an MCU movie. Whereas Shang-Chi was given the full pass somehow. Like, I don't know what is happening. I hope that we get more movies like Shang-Chi and less like Black Widow or, the Russo Bros stuff.
I agree 100%. Yeah. Like this feels more original. Like that's why I was my original like first like was like it feels original.
I'm not sure about original, but it feels more like an actual movie.
Right. Yeah.
It feels like if you had told me this was a part of the MCU, I would not have believed you. Like if you were to make me blind watch this and not tell me anything, I would not believe it was part of the MCU until the very end,
or until Wong shows up in halfway through. But yeah, I get your point, Ryan.
Well, even if you don't know who Wong is, like if you've never watched any other MCU movie before, like you would not recognize this as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe unless someone told you.
Yeah,
right. It's like it still has the Marvel branding in it with the other characters showing up and the kind of the Marvel formula. But also, this is what I want from the MCU. I want every movie to feel like something like its own. It's like with like the comic books. Each series has their own feel to it, depending on the artists behind it.
It's also
Daredevil feels like Batman sometimes.
Right.
Spider-Man has his own feel outside the MCU. Avengers has their own feel. So it just kind of depends.
It's a fresh take on that MCU. It's a fresh take on that MCU format. Like that formula, which is really cool.
Right. And like I also feel like this is the first time I watched an MCU movie and felt like, oh, like this is actually contributing to cinema, which is what I'll talk about in our second half on Patreon.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening to our episode of Shang-Chi and the Legend of 10 Rings, and be sure to check our Patreon for at least what's our tier? How much do they gotta pay to listen to the second half?
We might have to reorganize that. I believe right now it's $5, but we might need to reformat this because we're recording.
Maybe we can make it a little lower.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Maybe $1 just to get the special access.
This probably won't get released until later in the coming months. So just a heads up for those listening right now.
We'll have an answer by the time the episode's up. So just click on the description and you'll know how much you need to give us. But it's because we like money a lot.
We just need to eat. We gotta feed Ryan. He hasn't eaten in days.
Oh no! We gotta get him a new mic first before we give him food.
Hey, Ryan, you seen the new What If, right?
Yeah, I've seen the new What If.
We will not do that to you. I promise.
Oh, thank you. I would love if you wouldn't.
The zombie What If episode.
Yes.
We should clarify.
Yes.
But if you want to hear the rest of our thoughts, just check us out on Patreon. You can follow us on Twitter at CommittedCrits, at COMMITTEDCRITS. You can follow us on YouTube at Committed Critics, spelled the same there it is here and everywhere else. And special thanks to our current patrons, Davey Peppers from Game Mechanics, Ryan Kowalkowski from Ryan Plays Drums, Andy Phillips from Andy Phillips, and Jody Wright. And if you don't see us on Patreon, we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.